It's the VECTREX MULTICART. Want to play VECTREX games without buying them individually? Here you go. On the plus side, you get a stack of VECTREX games on one game cartridge. If this isn't every VECTREX game ever made, it's at least most of them. I'm not entirely sure, but you get a number of homebrew titles in addition to the ones commercially available. The downside is that you don't get the overlays or instruction manuals. And that's kind of a shame because, in my opinion, the overlays are half the fun when playing the VECTREX. They add to the unique charm that makes the VECTREX so awesome. But let's start off here by taking a look at Moonlander, a homebrew recreation of the famous Lunar Lander. Not much in the way of sound design, but it does capture the realistic sound of sound in no atmosphere, combined with a VECTREX hum. Basically a nice recreation of Lunar Lander, which was an old-school vector graphics arcade game. Oh no, oh no! I made my own sound effects. After years of playing with G.I. Joe and Transformers action figures, I am an experienced sound effect maker. Okay, in addition to some homebrew titles, you do get the games that you've heard about. Berserk, Scramble, Solar Quest, Hyper Chase. Like I said, this may be every VECTREX game. I'm just not entirely sure, but the VECTREX did not have a large library, so it's not surprising that they can all just fit onto one game cartridge, which has a 1999 copyright. The games are, as far as I can tell, identical to the actual packaged games. I've reviewed a number of these individually. I like to collect VECTREX games with the box, instructions, and overlay. If anything, the VECTREX MULTICART is ideal for those of you that want to collect for VECTREX but aren't sure what games you'd enjoy. Because this really doesn't cost very much. You can find it out there online. eBay is always a great place to look for VECTREX items. Now, while the instruction manuals are not terribly exciting, they don't have beautiful artwork like the Magnavox Odyssey 2 manuals, which are amazing. Watch my Magnavox reviews to see those. But they do give you the instructions, and a number of VECTREX games are not terribly intuitive. And if you don't have the overlays, you won't know what buttons do what. And you also don't get the brilliant stories, like the Hawk King versus the Cosmic Dragon in Web Wars. Here's a look at Scramble, one of the earliest side-scrolling spaceship shooters. We're watching it now without the overlay. Scramble undressed. See, that's how Konami should re-release these. Instead of Contra Rebirth, Contra Undressed. That would be weird. Never mind. Let's put the overlay on, though, to see the difference, because in most cases the overlay does not actually do anything to improve the gameplay, but it always looks cool. It adds a bit of color to this screen, and some serious style. That's why I like the overlays. But you certainly don't need them to play the games. If you buy a used VECTREX and want to sample all the games, the MULTICART is simply the best tool available because you just scroll through the menu and play all the games. Some of them require accessories. I don't have the pen, and I think the VECTREX had a 3D thing. Here's a look at Cosmic Chasm, a game I'm not familiar with. And without the overlay, I just don't know what buttons do what. But I do know how to play Pole Position. And this one's not a homebrew. This is a real game, Namco's classic arcade hit, Pole Position, on the VECTREX. I'll have to hunt this one down with the overlay because I'm impressed with this version of the game. This is far better than the Atari 2600 cartridge. It's impressive that the car actually looks like it's turning in this version. And the controls are excellent too. Very different than Hyper Chase. Nice music. Here's another game I'm not familiar with, and without instructions or overlay, I don't really know how to play it, but it looks promising. The VECTREX is not the least expensive game console to collect for, but since it's not wildly popular, the cartridges with the overlays are not in terribly high demand, so you'll find many of the games for far less money than Nintendo cartridges. And it's far less expensive than collecting for the Neo Geo. But since ideally you do want the games with the overlays, you probably won't find a giant lot with everything. That's why the MULTICART is nice to have. It's a good place to sample games before you hunt them down. A giant thank you to Rob in San Diego for loaning Classic Game Room this VECTREX MULTICART, along with the Sega Genesis modified VECTREX controller. Although you have now convinced me to hunt down Pole Position, Spinball, and Bedlam. Thanks, that's what I need. More VECTREX games. Actually, that is what I need. VECTREX is the cure for something that isn't VECTREX.